Hi, my name is David, and I teach the SAT digital reading and writing sections. Today, we're going to be looking at digital SAT practice test 1. So, let's look at some grammar. Which choice completes a text so it conforms to the conventions of standard English? British scientists James Watson and Francis Crick won the Nobel Prize in part for their 1953 paper announcing the double helix structure of DNA. But it is misleading to say that Watson and Crick discovered the double helix. Great. Blank. Findings were based on a famous X-ray image of DNA fibers. Photo 51, developed by X-ray crystallographer Rosalind Franklin and her graduate student Raymond Gosling. Okay, so this question, we're testing pronouns and specifically possessive, right? We're talking about findings and who these findings pertain to. And so we clearly have two people involved. We have Watson and we have Crick. Okay, so very obviously it is their findings, which means it must be C, right? A doesn't work because this is a contraction of they are. This, although it sounds like there, the meaning isn't the possessive that we're looking for, right? Are is a state of being verb. And so we're not saying anything about them being something. We're talking about possession, which means we need the possessive form. So there is incorrect. It's, again, this is not the possessive it's. This is the contraction for it is. And it would also be incorrect because we're talking about a plural thing, right? We're talking about two people. So we can't have a singular it. And by that extension, D is also incorrect, right? So C is our answer here. So this question, again, more grammar. In 1937, Chinese-American screen actor Anna Mary Wong, who had portrayed numerous villains and secondary characters but never a heroine, finally got a starring role in Paramount Pictures' Daughter of Shanghai, a film that, some blank, expanded the range of possibilities for Asian images on screen. Okay, so let's see here. We're talking about person and the name. All right, so obviously, critic Stina Chin. The question becomes, do we need punctuation here? And the answer is no, we don't need punctuation. Why? Because this operates in the same way as titles do. For instance, if I had for a title like hardcore motocross alpine skier Justinia, right? There wouldn't be any punctuation here because all of these are essential components into describing who this character is, right? Same as a title of a person. So there has to be no punctuation here, which means that C is a very strong contender, or C is the answer, right? If we have critic, comma, Stina Chin, right? It's not inherently, let's say, grammatically incorrect. We would just be ignoring the fact that we'd be reducing Stina Chin to a non-essential clause, right? Which we technically don't want to do here. So A's out. B has another comma after claims, right? We don't actually need, so this leads to the question of when do we need commas for quotes? And you only need commas for quotes when they interrupt the flow of the sentence, okay? In this instance, it is integrated within, right? What they're claiming is flowing directly from one to the other part, right? Stina claims X, right? this is the sentence in its entirety. So we don't actually interrupt any flow of the sentence, right? The other form, another example with this, if we need a comma, would be like Stina has said, or actually the easiest way would be said X, which we see a lot in books, right? Interrupts the flow of the sentence. So B would be incorrect here. D says critic Stina Chin again. So same reason as B. So C is our answer. Another grammar question. In 1453, English King Henry VI became unfit to rule after falling gravely ill. As a result, Parliament appointed Richard, 3rd Duke of York, who had a strong claim to the English throne, to rule as Lord Protector. Upon recovering 2 years later, blank, forcing an angered Richard from the royal court and precipitating a series of battles later known as the Wars of Roses. All right, so we're talking about modifiers here. Okay, so the way modifiers work is, let's see, if I have a modifier, I have a, let's just say noun, okay? The modifier has to immediately be related to what follows the comma, okay? So if we have a noun or a noun phrase, which functions as a noun, the modifier has to be, or the noun or noun phrase has to immediately follow the comma. You can switch the order of this without a problem, but the same conventions adhere, right? If the modifier immediately follows the noun, the modifier has to be talking about this specific object or noun phrase. So in this instance, upon recovering 2 years later, so the question is, who recovered 2 years later? Well, it must be a person, right? And it seems like it should be Henry based on the examples. So the answer then must be A, right? Because following this rule of the modifier either preceding the noun or following the noun, Henry must be here to receive the proper modification. If we choose B, right, the rain is the thing that becomes modified, which is incorrect because we're not talking about a rain that recovered 2 years later, right? We're talking about a person. Same thing with C, Henry's rain. D also says it was Henry. The issue with D is that it's not concise, right? It was Henry. Why do I need to talk about it was Henry when I can just say Henry? Right? The SAT really values concise answers. There are question types that specifically address this issue. So D is not as good as A. We're asked to look for logical transitions in this question. Transitions coordinate how information flows from one to another, right? Transitioning from A to B. So it's very important that we know from where to where things go, and we need to know the relationship between these two things. All right. So if we take a look here, although novels and poems are considered distinct literary forms, many authors have created hybrid works that incorporate elements of both. Bernardine Evaristo's The Emperor's Babe is a verse novel, a book-length narrative complete with characters and a plot but conveyed in short, crisp lines of poetry rather than prose. Okay, so we have two sentences, right, essentially. We have sentence A that talks about hybrid works. that combine novels or elements of novels and poems. And sentence B talks about an example. What does this example do? This example has elements of a book, right? A book narrative, length narrative, which suggests novel. But the way it's conveyed is poetic, right? So this example clearly has both elements, novels and poems, and it supports the claim that many authors have created hybrid works, right? And so it is an example that supports the previous claim, which makes this answer D. For example. It's really good to also know these transitions just for when we're writing essays and stuff. So let's take a look at A. By contrast, right? Contrast, as the name implies, we're contrasting, right? The relationship between A and B has to be unequal or different. But here, the relationship is the same, so we're not contrasting anything. Consequently implies as consequence, right? Or as a result of. But this is not a result of, right? B doesn't result from A. They are basically the same thing. So there is no consequence. Secondly is indicator of sequence. So there has to be one thing followed by another distinct item. But there is no sequence here, similar to what B suggests, and therefore we can be 100% sure that D is our answer.